Good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome to Couch Conversations with the Doctors, where health is wealth. What is it tonight? It is Monday night, and it is time for Couch Conversations with the Doctors. As always, we're going to go around introducing our esteemed panel of guests that are here with us, as always, all of our co-hosts. And we're going to start with my colleague who tends to leave and go and have fun in the sun. But Doug, today when I came in, I had my hood on. It's cold in Chicago.
I saw that, and I remember what the weather's like in April in Chicago. But thank you, Nikki. I'm a retired physician. I worked in the western suburbs for 30 years, and after I retired, I joined the congressman in his office. And I can tell you it's an eye-opening experience and very, very informative. It really changed my ideas about public health and public policy, and I'm going to try and answer your questions as best I can. It's a pleasure and honor to be here with the congressman and my colleagues.
Outstanding, outstanding. Well, to the urologist of the stars who hates accolades, but he's been a gem. That's our very own Dr. Terry Mason. Dr. Mason?
Thank you, Nikki. Great to be here. And I thank you and the congressman every time we have this forum and have this opportunity to speak with our constituents and to raise issues and discuss them. I'm grateful to be here. I'm a happily retired urologist. People ask me, am I going to go back to work? And I say, absolutely not. Emphatically, actually. I did what I needed to do, and I was grateful to have the opportunity to serve for over 30 years as a board certified urologist in the city of Chicago, and also in public service as the commissioner of health for the city of Chicago and the chief operating officer for the Cook County Health and Hospital System. And it's given me an opportunity to have just an amazing vista upon which to look at and critique where we are and what we need to be doing. And I thank our esteemed Congress for this opportunity.
Outstanding, and thank you so very much. It's amazing how you say absolutely not, but then you get up and go to work the next day. Outstanding, outstanding. To the gentleman who is the weight loss guru, the champion in family medicine doctor, that's our very own Dr. Tony Hampton. Dr. Hampton?
Thank you, Nikki. Thank you, Congressman. Again, family doctor with Advocate Health and a little extra training in obesity medicine and nutrition, and really excited about being able to spread this message. Had a chance to, they had a little open forum today at Compassion Baptist Church on the south side near Trinity, where we shared the $1 billion project we have for the South Side. I was happy to just briefly say a few words about that. So I'm just really excited about the future and how we're going to help spread the message of healing to more people in Chicago and hopefully throughout the country as we make sure we focus on what we put on our plates as our primary focus. So excited to be here, and thanks for the opportunity.
Outstanding. Well, to the man who says that I threaten him to be here every Monday night, but he seems to always be on time, that's our very own Dr. James Miller. Dr. Miller?
Well, good evening, everybody. I'm happy to join my colleagues and hopefully participate in a informative discussion that can help somebody maybe have better health or just find some answers to some health issues or just answers to life, because that's what we're talking about. Health is a important part of life. Life without good health is can be a difficult chore. So I'm a retired physician. I retired from practicing internal medicine after about 40 years. And even though I don't do clinical medicine anymore, I still am interested in helping heal the community in any way that I can. And believe me, I found that there are a lot of things that need healing that has nothing to do with the prescription or prescribing, but it has to do with information and helping people to learn how to access information, how to use information, and how to take care of themselves. So I'm happy to be here, and thanks for the invite.
Outstanding, outstanding. To the doctor who's known on these streets as Dr. 100, that is, to the one who's always keeping it real, that's our very own Dr. Maya Green. Dr. Green, why don't you introduce yourself?
Good evening. My name is Dr. Migraine, also known as Dr. 100. Like I said before, I'm still a little under the weather, but still overjoyed to be here with my colleagues and with community. Thank you, Nikki, and thank you, Congressman, for creating this time and this space. You created it during COVID when our community needed it most, and we continue to need it. While COVID isn't gone, but the spike is gone. We have other things, social determinants of health, attacks on our community, and other things presenting our tribe in very different dangers, that generally have the same outcome. So I'm glad to have this space where we can connect.
Outstanding. I want to say hey to Audrey Jaycox, who's here. She says, good evening to everyone, and always informative information. I want to say hey to Cordelia Thomas, who's here, to Marsha Oliver, who is here, Jazzy Patterson, who is here, to Charles Wright, who is here with us, to Commissioner Donna Miller, who is here with us. I want to say hey to Michelle Garrettson. I want to say hey to Jackie Underwood. Also want to say hello to Miss Hollywood. She says, I'm here as always, checking in. Want to say hey to Marvelous Snipes, to Phyllis Rogers, who is here with us, to Aileen Cox. Happy birthday, Aileen. Want to say hey to Helen Grace, who is here, to Mo, who is here with us, David Kelly, who is here with us. Hey, Judge David Kelly, how are you? Arlene Spencer, April Pryor, and W. Ford. Want to say hey to Sherry Boggs. Sherry says, Greg and I all are at the fire station watching. So, hey, how are you? Want to say hey to Tony Strong, to Rochelle Finney, and also to Lynette Coleman and her sister Deborah over at Coleman's Barbecue. Hey, everybody, how are you? Well, to the one who makes this possible for us each and every Monday night, to the one who continues to tell us that true wealth is your health, that's our very own Congressman of the Illinois 7th Congressional District, Congressman Danny K. Davis. Congressman?
Well, I stopped in Coleman's Barbecue last week, and I just stopped in there for the smell. I didn't, I didn't get any barbecue, but I did stop, and my wife and I shared. I just got enough to taste. I didn't get enough to dig in. But it's a pleasure to see all of you. I'm a little sleepy because I did some traveling during the weekend. I went to Tallahassee, Florida, to participate in a sickle cell conference. And we spent the whole day with sickle cell advocates and physicians and nurses and researchers, and people just were great. And they picked me up at the airport. They brought me back to the airport but it was like 4 o'clock in the morning, which means I had to get up at 3 in order to make the flights. But I went through Atlanta, and I thought that O'Hara was an airport. But Lord have mercy, Atlanta at 5 o'clock in the morning. I mean, there were thousands of people around in that airport. And every few minutes, the mayor would come on with the public announcement, welcome to Atlanta, the busiest airport in the world. And I said, I guess he was right. The busiest airport in the world. But I listened a few minutes ago to Dr. Mason and Dr. Graham. They were having a conversation, and I didn't announce myself and say that I was listening or that I was on, but they were painting a picture of America. And I mean, it was so profound. I had wished that I had been recording it so that I could play it back to myself over and over and over again. Because in reality, we are facing a period in the history of our country where some real interesting decisions are going to have to be made. I shared with the group the other day that it has taken the world from its beginning, whenever that was, until now, to become as it is. And everything that I've been taught and have learned or been told, most of it represent changes in the way we behave. Reading the Bible, I kind of discovered that people who had leprosy, they just kind of take them out in the desert and leave them by themselves, and they would become colonies of lepers because nobody else wanted to be around them or be bothered with them. And I understand that they also used to treat people who had mental disorders pretty much the same way, that they just kind of leave them alone and let them be isolated, and that the word bedlam got created because they'd just be creating bedlam, and that's what they'd be doing. And they would be isolated from others. I had the good fortune to visit the leprosarium in Carville, Louisiana, some years ago with a bunch of health researchers and professionals. And they told us that people there had leprosy, but we didn't have to worry because it was not contagious and that we could interact and shake hands and do all the stuff. And all of these basically were top flight health officials in the United States from the government. And even though they told us that, I noticed that many people were reluctant. They were getting too close. They wasn't, you know, hugging nobody and all of that kind of stuff. So even though we knew that we were not in danger, people kind of felt like they may be in a little danger anyway. And so I think there are many people in our country who are feeling like we may be in a little danger anyway. And what do we do about it becomes the big question. And what does that do to the health of people, all of us? And so thanks to our group, the first thing I heard Sunday morning when I got in my car at the airport and turned it on was Doctor in the House. Because I got back right at 10 o'clock. And that was the first thing I heard. And I said, well, I know I'm back in Chicago because I got Doctor in the House. So thank all of the doctors in the House on this Monday evening. Nikki, take us away.
Outstanding. Well, we have quickly. I remember on one occasion, the congressman was in the airport in Atlanta, and all of the housewives from the Housewives of Atlanta ran to the congressman because they all knew who he was. So
well, I was shocked because there were people at this conference from Florida and other places who view this activity on Monday evenings. I was surprised. One lady was asking me, how was Dr. Hampton, and how was so and how was Caleb? And I was shocked that these individuals somehow or another are aware enough. And this one lady who was one of the presenters, we knew everybody on the panel and knew what their expertise was, what they talked about. So it's amazing. So I was very pleased and very happy.
Outstanding. Well, we have a plethora of questions. Usually we choose what has been requested the most, and that's usually our conversation. However, when we looked at our top over the weekend, the congressman said, let's kind of just talk about all of them. So with that being said, Dr. Maya, I'm going to throw this in your lap since I sent you those questions a little earlier. And let's just engage everyone. I guess I'll give the first question that's on the list, unless you have them right up near you, because I'm trying to pull them back up, but people are still rolling stuff in. So
I got it, Nikki.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Okay. All right. We got a lot on the panel tonight, but very important stuff. The first thing up was a question about Medicare and currently what's going on with proposed cuts and how or if that's going to impact our elders and their health care. I'll let people chime in. You know, I always have my 2 cents, but let's go.
So I'm going to speculate without firsthand knowledge that we're going to see that because of the economic philosophy of this administration. And unfortunately, I was in Congress with the congressman when they attempted to do that with Alex Azar and presented their budget. And so that's where my conviction comes from. And that they don't really understand the need for these programs or the economic benefit of these programs or the cost of cutting these programs. It's fairly astonishing to watch this kind of thinking being executed without having done an in-depth analysis of the circumstances. So it's not that I want these cuts, but I'm anticipating that they're coming. And while there will be a fight about it, if one looks at all the things that have happened, I think Mr. Trump has probably won more than he's lost. And I suspect if that's what they're determined to do, they will find a way to do some of it at least. And all I can say is we need to prepare for it. And it's better to be over-prepared and be wrong than to be underprepared and be caught short.
Agree. One of the things I'll go here, and then I think Dr. Hampton, or Dr. Miller, I may have seen you quickly come off. One of the things that's really, I too was in the backstage listening to Dr. Mason and Dr. Graham and Congressman. I did the same thing. I didn't even say I was backstage. It took me a while as they rounded there before I was like, okay, I'm backstage, because I just wanted conversations like that. You just let happen, and listen and learn. One of the things that always is super confusing to me is as you read the news, you hear, oh, this is this former president's fault, this former president, and the inability to take accountability for what's going on right now in this current administration is, as we say in my community, bananas. It's wild business. It's straight crazy, And so it's like, okay, if things are in place right now, then you do what you need to do right now for our people. But Dr. Miller, did you have something you wanted to say?
Okay. Yeah, I think that it's kind of ironic that seemingly people have difficulty really looking back at history, because really history will tell us a lot of things about what happens when we don't have adequate healthcare being provided. I mean, these are times that I actually have lived through. I'm sure Dr. Mason had lived through, when people just weren't able to access healthcare, either because they couldn't afford it or it wasn't available in their community. And so these were times when we saw a lot of infectious disease like TB, and now we hear these diseases coming back. And so whenever we sort of hear things that we thought were eradicated coming back and being a problem, one says, well, there's something going on here, and whether one understand the process or not, or understand or knows the history of how devastating these diseases occur, how they affect people, and what kind of problem they cause, I think we would look at it and say, you know what, the cost of taking care of a person that has the infection and has these other problems are going to be a lot more than what we save in terms of. So so when people get sick, they got to be cared for. And I remember back in the day when people just didn't have health insurance, and they couldn't go and get preventative care. And so they often end up going to the emergency room. And, during my residency, I remember people coming in who were just, had just advanced diseases that shouldn't have gotten to that point. And the days that they spent in the hospital, and you equip that with cost, that there's a lot of cost in that. And people die, and all the other, bad things that happened as a result of that. We often talk on this in this session about the effect of stress on people's lives, and it's dramatic. And when people don't have what they need to make certain that they are comfortable, that they're cared for, that create a great deal of stress, and that's fear, and all those things that make sick people sicker. And so we just, we got to really begin to figure out how do we. I know we've gotten into a situation where we don't, at least politically, we're going to have to do something a little bit different, because the way that the Congress is set up now, and the presidency and the court, this is going to be a difficult battle, but we got to fight it. I mean, it's when we look back through history with all the different kinds of problems that I've seen during my lifespan, we've had some tough times. These are bad times, but there've been some worse times, and more difficult problems that we've been able to overcome. I grew up in a time of Jim Crow, and lived in rural areas where a lot of the manifestation and the performance were right there, to be seen, and to have to be dealt with. So, it's difficult, but I think, we got to. The one thing that it did do, it made people pull together, band together to help each other to deal with the problem, because that's the things that people need is not going to be necessarily be found in institutions. So communities are going to have to come together and figure out what can we do to help each other to survive, so so I think that this is where we are, and we in this mess we're going to have to do something.
So Dorothy Murray is here, and she says, always excited about what I'm going to learn on Mondays to pass on to my family, friends, and thank you. And then Deborah from Coleman's, Deborah, the congressman, told on himself. He told that he was there last week, so you didn't out him. He told on himself. He said he came in for the smells, but left with a bag. So I just wanted to tell you. Also, Stephanie is here, and Stephanie says, Congressman, I want to thank you for all that you do. I don't know what it's going to take to wake up our communities. I was reading an article today that really scares me about Trump's administration and Doge eliminates staff who helps older adults and people with disabilities. This is simply crazy. Our vote really counts. We as Black people don't understand how important it is to contribute money to campaigns. I think we all need to give Congressman Davis money so he can help fight Trump. Very good. Very good. Very good. You are absolutely right, Miss Stephanie. You are right. Also, Keisha states, Dr. Miller, thank you so very much for that. You are right. My grandmother often talks about growing up in the days of Jim Crow, and we look at her like she was talking with two heads. And the song We Shall Overcome really meant something back then. However, today, we're too busy stabbing each other in the back to understand that we need to band together to overcome. Well, that's interesting.
Hey, Nikki.
Yes, yes, Dr. Mason, go right ahead.
Yeah, I'm just going to say something very brief. It's from a song that was made popular by Michael Jackson, and so some of what you just said a minute ago or so is wrapped up in the lyrics of that song, and it says, "All I want to say is they don't really care about us," and that's was in Michael Jackson's song. I mean, some of y'all probably know that song. It was put to a military beat and what have you. But I really feel this way is that when we look at the actions of a lot of the leadership, it's clear that all I really want to say is they don't really care about us. And so the question becomes, when is us going to care enough about us to create some action of our own to be certain that our us is represented and respected, and this is our government. They may act like it's their corporation, but it's really our government. And so I'm going to leave it open. I'm going to just leave that door open right there, and we can move on.
I'll add, Nikki, since I'm also a Michael Jackson fan, that we may have to start with the man in the mirror when we think about what we got to do. And what the worst thing you can do is lose hope about your ability to affect change. The same change that led to a new administration is the same kind of change that'll lead to another administration. So I think to the extent people are busy and struggling and just trying to get to the next day and pay their bills, but you can pause for a moment and maybe call your senator, your representative, and just make sure they're aware that you are not interested in a Medicare cut. You may want to take a moment to understand when you're voting for people, instead of just voting for who's popular or who sounds good, understand a little bit about the policies. You can't understand all the policies, but you may want to at least deal with the policies that affect you the most. And healthcare would probably be in the top three. If you have an opportunity if there's an organization that has petitions out there that they're asking you to sign, just pause for a moment and sign that petition. And if you have more time, there may be some advocacy groups out there. I know some people were marching all over the country this past weekend to kind of fuss a little bit about what's going on. So I think if we did a man in the mirror moment, and of course that's a woman and anybody else who's looking in the mirror, let's do something actionable to impact change. And if we do that, we will at least wake up the next morning knowing that I did my part. So that's what I would ask our audience to do.
So I want to say hey to Sean Kennedy, who is here. He says, good evening to the panel. And Tiffany says she agreed. Everybody in the mirror. All right, Tiffany.
I know that's right. And then, you know what, Nikki? I was thinking, too, if we're talking about proposed Medicare cuts, and then we're talking about firing of the staff that's helping, it paints a picture of exactly kind of what's happening. I think, I don't know if we were on when Congressman was telling a story about the lepers. I don't know if we were live, but talking about the lepers, I always talked about, it was interesting to hear, you know, I'm an HIV specialist, so I always talk about how HIV a lot of times for a lot of people may be a form of the new leprosy where they're othered, and you know, so it's always it was interesting to hear that put into context of what's happening and how certain parts of our human kind are being pushed outside of the gates of health. They're being pushed outside of access to care for their quality of life, right? And so, but here's the hope, you know, two things. Nikki, who did you say said, I think we should donate? I forgot the person's name.
Mhm.
But I
Go
want
back
to,
and find it, but I'll go back and find her name.
whoever it was, I agree, because you don't need to wait every 4 years or every 2 years to midterms, all that other stuff. You vote
Stephanie.
every
That
day
was
with your
Stephanie.
dollar.
That
Stephanie?
was yeah, that was Stephanie.
All right, Miss Stephanie, I agree with you. We vote every day with our dollars. And here is something, as I was thinking about the stress that Dr. Miller mentioned, that is put on us when we have to hear this. Also, stress, yes, we're voting and we're sending well wishes, positive energy, praying, all those things, because, you know, the congressmen, our healthcare providers that are at the forefront of caring for us, anybody that's in service to us is always wanting to push hope and believing in hope, because they can't kill our hope. But there's also the stress that they face. So we also want to hold them up every chance we get. Now,
Mhm.
also, I want to put something in your ear. Something I learned when I was a teenager. You can always know, if you know what somebody worships, you know where to make them sacrifice. Right? We have, somebody mentioned they're trying to run this like a corporation. These people worship money. These people worship money. So if you know what they worship, you know where to make them sacrifice. Let's do it. Let's vote every day with our dollars. Put our dollars where it makes them sacrifice, and don't put them where it also makes them sacrifice. Right? So don't put them in entities where they're making a buck or growing off of us, but also put them in areas, put them with our elected officials, put them with our service spaces that are going to help our community thrive. And that's going to be my also going to be my until next Monday. I'll wait again and say it again. If you know what somebody worships, you know exactly where to make them sacrifice.
Exactly. Absolutely. If it's not a part of your agenda or what you believe in, then stay out of there. If you don't like certain things, stay out of there. Connie Taylor says, good evening to everybody. Hey, Miss Connie, how are you? It is great to see you here with us. Long COVID. What is long COVID? And how long is long COVID going to be around? And what's the difference between COVID and RSV? And hey, Laura Leon. Laura Leon has just chimed in and she's saying
So,
good evening to everyone just as well. Go ahead, Doug.
so I think of this like a cold. Most of us have had a cold. You have about 4 to 5 days of runny nose, sore throat, cough, and it goes through certain stages. And at the end of 2 weeks, you're pretty much back to normal. With long COVID, some of those symptoms do not clear, and you have continuing either low grade or medium grade inflammation in certain places, the lungs, the brain, that makes you fatigued and confused and less able to function in life. So it's as if it never cleared your system, or if it cleared your system, it left so much behind, your body's having difficulty handling it. Now, RSV and the flu are also viruses, but they're structured differently. And your body's had enough experience with the flu that for most sets of circumstances, it can handle it and deal with it. But the reason why we get vaccinated is it helps us handle it better.
Mhm.
It's like getting a booster so that it doesn't lay you as low as it could. The flu is still a common cause of mortality in the United States. And RSV in certain vulnerable populations can also be a cause. So basically, it's like getting a boost to your immune system. So if that virus, RSV or flu comes your way, you're better able to deal with it and you have a shorter and milder course. Long COVID, it doesn't clear your system. and you're still left with the consequences of the illness. And we have yet to discover how to end long COVID.
Well, Paul says if he's cutting Medicare cuts and doing all of this, what happens to people who suffer from long COVID and have comorbidities and extensive diagnoses after having COVID? I had COVID 3 times, and now I even have a heart problem. And this was all from COVID. I never had none of these things before. I can barely afford the medication, and I'm a professional who works a job every day. How do we make it? Thank you, Paul, so much for that. Thanks.
So I've been thinking about this, and that is, I think that we have to find alternative sources. Maybe we can talk to the American Heart Association. Maybe we can talk to Red Cross. Maybe there are other non governmental philanthropic organizations that may help us with some resources. It's very, very difficult having a conversation with someone like this administration where their mind is already made up and they're determined to do it their way.
Let me tell you, I am a co-chair of the Philanthropy Caucus. And of course, private giving is down.
Mm.
I'm saying it is down. And one of the reasons that, I'm in that caucus, not because I have a lot of money to deal with anything, but we have so many not-for-profits throughout our entire city that deal with these issues. And I'm looking at a press release from the Illinois Department of Public Health that says Trump administration slashes pledged funding that would protect Illinoisans from infectious disease outbreaks. CDC notifies the Illinois Department of Public Health it has rescinded $125 million in promised public health investments and blocked $324 million in pledged future federal support. And all of this is money that had either been allocated to help with the infectious disease problem in Illinois. And if you don't get that money, what are these centers going to do? They cannot provide
Mm-mm.
the services. I mean, they just cannot do it. And I think somebody said earlier that when you restrict money from an economy, it impacts the whole. For example, many people are now going to cremations because they don't have the money or their families don't have the money to pay for traditional funeral services and burials that have been a part of the culture of their community. I'm saying, and I guess, when you go, you gone. But there are some people who traditionally like to be put away a certain way. I mean, and if they have to go soon, I was thinking of a lady, I listen to Pam Morris a lot on Sundays when she does her gospel. And she's been talking about a lady who died this past week, Mother Kennerson, who's 105 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a little bit away from being 106. And so I'm thinking of the number of years she has lived beyond 65, which means that Medicare has kicked in. But if Medicare is not there, I don't know if there are a lot of people who are going to get to be 105. They'll be gone.
Mother Kennerson was actually Dr. Miller and Dr. Maya, Dr. 100. I don't know if you guys remember Mother Kennerson, but when we did our second mass COVID vaccine, Congressman, when you instituted that and we did it over at Rising Sun, she was actually our first patient who came and got her vaccine because she wanted the Johnson vaccine, I believe, because she only wanted the one shot. And she was the one that they brought over in her wheelchair when we had those like 5,000 people in line for their shots. So she came right to Rising Sun and got her COVID vaccine. That was Mother Kennerson. They brought her over. So that was so great. But you were about to say something, Dr. 100. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, well, Nikki, I think you hit it right on the head by bringing that up. That was an example of when people who are dedicated to service to the community, many call, you chose, and those of us that are bound to that calling came together and just said, hey, all the different entities, we're going to pull out the people that care about our community to make sure our community gets what we need. I was talking to, and that's what we're going to need more of that. And I suggest we don't wait until the last minute. Those of us that are interested in caring about our community, look at what options we have now. Congressman, when you look at safety net hospitals, safety net spaces, safety net clinics, FQHCs, things that are going on, these cuts ultimately put a burden, or I don't even want to say a burden. That's what we use in healthcare, shift patient responsibility to those entities, right? It is the duty and the honor of these safety nets to care for people regardless of ability to pay. And what is going on right now is the current landscape is shifting more people into the category of people who can't pay, right? And so it's going to become upon those entities to organize and kind of maybe change their structure, maybe change the way we access and care for patients, but be very intentional on how we're going to do it. Why? Because at the same time, you're talking about policies that are going to increase the presence of these transmittable diseases. So not only are those entities going to have to care for a higher volume of people, they're going to have to move those people through the space and clean the space at more rapid rates than they have before, right? Because you don't want to leave people in the space that with infections. Speaking of infections, when I talk about HIV, I always talk about stigma, disease of the mind, with higher virility than HIV, kills more people than HIV ever could. This is a good time to bring up another disease that's like a cancer. It's called racism. Kills more people than any of this ever could, any of those diseases, So, and it's very important that we not only, just like we get checked for diabetes or the flu or HIV or RSV, it's very important that in the way things are institutionalized, we check ourselves and our community, and we be very intentional about anything we can do to stamp out anything that we see that contributes to that disease of racism among us. And it's going to take all of us, no matter how our skin looks or appears.
Yeah, Maya, you brought up a very important point here. I was listening to Dr. Mason a little bit earlier. He was saying, I'm retired and and I'm very happy. I don't intend to go back to work. Terry, we might have to go back to work. It might be because as we looked at these systems, I talked about this a few weeks ago, that even with the funds that were available, people were still already having trouble getting care, getting to areas of care where that was, areas that was accessible to them, that they didn't have to take 5 buses to get to. Um, so I think that we do have to begin to look and see the situation as it is, not as we dreamed it would be, not as we thought it would be, but as it is. And I think we have to look at we have to plan. I mean, I remember back a long time ago. This is back during the initial times when the bird flu was thought to be a disease, the next big disease that was going to come up, and they started developing regional kinds of situations where they would have people that were able to figure out how to um, pull together groups to take care of these sick people and to figure out how we can do the medical staff of the various hospitals so that the people that may not be on that hospital, but their expertise is needed, how we can get them in. And so what I'm saying is that, and so we were going through these processes of preparation. It never, the bird flu hasn't really happened yet to that kind of extent. But this is something that is more likely to happen because of the fact that we already had an issue with people getting health care because they couldn't afford it. And if people can't get these things, all the other things that we always talk about, the preventative care, all these things are also going not to be done as they should be done. And so I think that we really do have to begin to look and to plan and to for an alternative to what is going on, sometimes we have to, be thankful for the blessings that we've had, and that to understand that given those blessings, they weren't just given to us to not use when the situation comes that we need to use them for. So we really do need to be coming together. As Dr. Meyer said, we got to come together and make certain that we have made preparation for the people of our community, that they can get what they need, and that that they're not going to be laying somewhere on slabs or being found laying on the street because they couldn't get the care that they need. So these are just things that we there sometimes there are alternatives, but sometimes we don't at this point in time, unless we I'm sure that there are going to be a lot of marches and a lot of protests and all those things, but that was a slow turning of the wheel. We're going to need some things that can happen quickly.
Dr. Miller, there was a song that Michael Jackson wrote that sort of has some lyrics that are appropriate to what we're talking about now. And in that lyric, he said, "All I want to say is they don't really care about us." I mean, no, I'm just saying that's Michael wrote the song. And I say that because us, there was another line from, I think, The Color Purple, when Celie says, "What us gonna do?"
Yeah.
And that's the question that we really are skirting around. And that is, what is us gonna do? We can do a lot of talking, but what are we going to do? And we have some resources, and it may not be everything that we have. And the other thing I would say, just to recontextualize that, there was one time we had over 400 Black hospitals in the United States. Over 400 Black owned and operated hospitals in the United States. And now we don't have any, for the most part. And so the question isn't we're clear and they're clear about what they're going to do, but how clear are we about what we're going to do, if anything?
Yeah.
And if so, how do we muster the resources that we have? Because we have some resources. Absolutely. We have people that are very bright, very smart, people who can do things. We can think about some alternative ways about doing things. Not that there is something for everything. And obviously, some of the infrastructure that we have will continue to need and will continue to be funded. But it is clear from what I see that these people are more concerned about where they want the money to go than where it needs to go. And when I mean needed, not by needed by their pockets, but by needed by the people, because I don't see that sort of concern Maybe I'm missing it all, Congressman, but I'm just not seeing that kind of concern. And that troubles me more. And it even troubles me more if we don't begin to have conversations about what Celia and say said in the movie about what is us going to do.
Hey, can I add? I got to keep the Michael Jackson theme going. And the other song lyric that I thought about is "Don't stop until you get enough." Now, you may be asking, what does that have to do with anything? And what I learned when I'm in a position of harm or struggle, and I'll say something I shouldn't say, but I'm gonna say it. There are going to be some broke folk under this administration, and there's going to be some rich folk, and it's likely that the president may not have mattered for some of these folks. So I'm going back to this idea of controlling your destiny. And when you are in a position of struggle, and I know this can't be true for everybody in terms of trying to keep your family safe, the first thing is everybody on this call should be having a budget. You should have a budget that will I want to know where every dollar is going every month. And when you do a budget, you're going to realize in many cases, and I had this experience personally, that maybe I don't have as much money as I thought I did. So do you have the resources to handle an emergency? And when you start hearing about people talking about how many people got $1,000 in the bank for an emergency fund, the number is very low. And so we can't control the White House to the extent we can, but do you have an emergency fund? Do you do a budget? And are you eliminating all the chains of debt? Have you actually looked at those high interest credit cards and start paying them off? So when you have a medical emergency, are you in a position to support your family so that you can pay for that medical emergency, not relying 100%? While we're fighting for change, there are some things that we can do. So for those people who are not in dire straits and you have a job and you're able to kind of keep the lights on and the food on the table, let's start reevaluating. I mean, even Dr. Hampton, with all of the resources of a doctor, I don't use the lawn people like I used to. Hinkley, and that's the water people. I got rid of them too. I mean, there are so many cable. I do not have cable in my house. If you're a broke person and you still have cable, you need to look at the man in the mirror and say, why do I have cable? There are some decisions we need to make to be more responsible. And while we're fighting for change and relying on our leaders and the actions of ourselves, let's be let's be stronger so that when we see a storm, which we can see this storm coming, it's going to get ugly. Yeah. How do we prepare ourselves, no matter if you're making $20,000 a year or $2 million, so that you can weather that storm? So I ask everybody on this call, do a budget, start working towards things that you need to do to make sure your family is safe and secure, because we've never seen nothing like this before. And we're still pinching ourselves because we can't believe it's real. Yes,
you are not alone. I don't have cable either. It's enough to pay the light bill to have a TV on. So why am I have cable? I don't have cable. I go over other people's house to watch cable.
Right. We'll get together and watch the fight in one house.
Right, in one house. Pastor Emmett T. Williams III is here. And he says, this is really good. Congressman Davis and the doctors, you have my best regards. Black churches have always been a meeting place in the Black community. We all, as pastors and churches, not just the community, needs to band together and do our contributions to Congressman Davis. I'm with the lady. Stop the building fund. Why are we doing the building fund? We can't build if we don't have anything to build on. Let's give our money to Congressman Davis. All right, Congressman Davis. You the building fund. All right. All right.
Let me tell you how important I think what Dr. Hampton was just saying. So much and so until we now do something we call end of life planning and promotion. And there are so many things that we can do that will improve the quality of life And it's amazing as people get engaged in what they say about things that they have learned to do. There are so many people who have no insurance when they pass away. It causes so much consternation among families. There are family fights and
Mm.
family feuds, and how are we going to bury this person? I just experienced something like that last week where a friend of mine, dear friend of mine, and he even had money, but nobody could access it.
Mm.
And they still had to do a collection kind of thing. And he is actually reported to have had about $1 million. But they still had to go through these changes to create the memorial service that they wanted to create for him because no planning and arrangements had been made. And, it could have been prevented. It really could have. Just doing what people could have done and should have done, but it
Mm.
was not done.
Wow. Well, I know you guys hate when I say this. Want to say hey to Sandale Scott, who is here with us just as well. Well, it's our time. I know you guys hate that. I know you hate it. But with that being said, we're going to just go over really quickly our until next Monday. Doug, until next Monday. You muted, Doug.
Thank you, Nikki. I'm actually going to say two things. I think in this particular time in our life, I really support Dr. Mason's idea about food as medicine. This is the time where we really have to be extra careful about what we eat, what fuel we put in our bodies. We have to protect our health by what we eat. We've got to stay away from crunchy, the salty, and the sugary snacks, and the highly processed food. Fast food is going to be develop into a real fast problem if we continue it. And the second thing is, I'm very concerned with the tariffs that we're going to have medication shortages. My recommendation is get to know your local pharmacist. If they're part of a chain, have him help you find out where the drugs are stocked. Because not all pharmacies have the same inventories. And it may be if you need a particular medication, your local pharmacy doesn't have it. But if you drive a little distance to take the bus, you may be able to get it. So I'd say look for the shortages and eat healthy.
Outstanding. Thank you so much. I'm glad you said that because there was an anonymous comment that came in and I intended to read it. So I'm going to read that comment really quickly. Want to say hey to the people over at the Core Center. We know that you guys are here. Hey to the gentlemen who are sitting in their garage. It's cold outside. I don't see how you guys are sitting in the garage. Maybe it's heated, but it's a group of them who sits in the garage and watch. And they said, don't forget us in the garage watching. So hey to the group, but it's cold. The gentleman says in his comment, he said, it's amazing how the stock exchange is dropping, but our prescription costs are going up. Okay. Thank you for that. I shared it. Want to remind everyone about our upcoming Friday, April 11th at 5:30 to 8 p.m. over at the Skyline Room, The Art of Black Birth, the storytelling event that we have in reference to our maternal health month. So maternal health week, which is inside Minority Health Month. And it's something that the Congressman does every year. We always have something different. So this time we're going to have storytelling. So just wanted to make sure that we reminded you all of that. Well, Dr. Mason, you're until next Monday.
Until next Monday is, for us to think about what we've heard here tonight. And to Tony's point, we need to think about what we individually can do. and hopefully we can think about how we can spread that so that we have more of a community response, because ain't no cavalry coming. Ain't no cavalry coming. So we need to understand there's nothing going to come and help us do this if we don't help ourselves. And we do have resources, and we just need to think about how we can better use them. So that's my until next Monday. And I'll be thinking about how I can do that with my own family, my own circle of friends, and what have you. Because there's going to be, as Dr. King said, there's some difficult days ahead.
Absolutely. Also, and thank you to Sonny Parker. Sonny Parker just sent me, NBA player Sonny Parker. He just sent me a little note. Nikki, I'm watching as always, but don't forget to announce what we do every summer. And you are right, Sonny. It had kind of slipped my mind. Each year, the congressman does somewhat of a small health and youth initiative. Dr. Miller and I, along with Malcolm X, along with our office in Malcolm X, does an event, and it's called Congressman Davis's Bright and Sunny. So it's Bright Leadership, it's Congressman Davis's office, Bright Leadership Institute, and Sonny Parker. It is a youth initiative that we do around basketball during the summertime. So join us. That's it's going to be July 13th through August 11th. So don't forget that. Mark your calendars in advance for July 13th through August 11th. It's every Sunday and Monday night, every Sunday and Monday night from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. And this year, instead of us being at Phillips High School, we're going to be over at Malcolm X. And we're going to have an additional health component to it, not just the workout, but we're going to have an additional health component to it. So more information to come. So it's NBA players, the NCAA, and it's a great tournament that we do. This is year 6 for us. So make sure that you join us. Well, Dr. Miller, you're until next Monday.
I just want to say, it's. I know that we got to remember that there are going to be some dark days in life. There's going to be some rains and storms. There's going to be trials and tribulation. So I know things might look like we can't get through it, but don't lose hope. We're going to get through this. Now, I think that we have, as Dr. Mason said, we have some resources. We have some. We're able to do some things, and we got to. I do. One thing I do say is we need to make certain that we put things. Things are happening already to bring about more hard times. So we need to not wait until people are falling out and can't get care before we decide on what it is that we're going to do. We need to not organize now. They say the best time to prepare for war is in a time of peace. Now we're waiting till the war's gotten started already. So we better start to making certain that we prepare for the war. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to defend ourselves. So even though it's tough, hope don't lose your hope, and we're going to make it one way or the other. But we need to also make certain that we do what we can, not wait on somebody else to do for us what we can do for ourselves.
Outstanding. And Q, I apologize. I see you guys here to Q and the Black Fire Brigade. Thank you guys for being here all the time. You are so faithful. And also to Sandell Scott, who's saying hello again. You are here. I see you. Wonderful. Well, Dr. Hampton, you're until next Monday.
Well, we are in a crisis, and we have a choice. I tell my patients all the time, when you're in a crisis, what are you going to do? It may be a blood pressure crisis, or maybe even the financial crisis I just talked about. So in a crisis, it's really our daily habits that will determine if we're going to survive a crisis. So if we want to have financial health or even metabolic health, these things are not going to happen by accident. It's going to require some preparation. It's going to require maybe a little being intentional about it, and maybe even a little courage as you stand before the mirror and look at yourself. You look at the man in the mirror. So, and I actually have gotten stronger because I did something recently that allowed me to be a stronger person. So we had a plumbing problem. I'm actually going to make a YouTube video about this. They had a plumbing problem. Water coming up from the first floor toilet. And in that moment, the plumber said, I can't get to you. So he said, if you use the shower, it's got to be quick. So I said, okay. So for the first time, I had the courage to do something I've been telling my patients to do, which is consider a cold shower, which has the amazing benefits that it's not enough time to talk about the benefits of a cold shower. So I lathered myself outside of the shower. I turned that cold water on, and guess what? I got through that cold shower. Now, why do I bring that up? Because when you do things you think you can't do, you come on the other side of that stronger than you ever been. So now I have the courage and the mindset to do even more things, because if I can handle that cold shower, and by the way, I've been doing it every day this week, it changes who you are. It changes how you look at life and what you think you can and can't do. So if anybody out there saying, no, I can't, let's do an Obama and say, yes, you can, because you can be healthier. You can make your family more financially secure. But nobody, as Dr. Mason had, there's no Calvary coming. We're going to try to do our best to make a Calvary. That's why we have elected officials. But while we're waiting for change, and it may be 3.5 years or so before that happens, we're going to fight and fight and fight. And I just want to make sure you know that you have all the balls in your hand. You can do this.
Outstanding. And it's funny you would bring up things that you can do. Phyllis Murray, she sent another message. She was like, please read my message to Dr. Hampton. I was going to ask you just to type her answer. She asked, did pickle juice really work for Charlie horses?
Oh, yes. Yes.
I'm sipping pickle juice right now because I got a Charlie horse. I got it on ice.
My young sisters from the old neighborhood knew what they were doing with the pickles. So yes, absolutely. Pickle juice works miracles. Magnesium cream is going to work miracles. And mustard, a little mustard in your mouth will work miracles. So just in an emergency, you got some remedies.
Absolutely. Well, Dr. Maya, here's your time to repeat your until next Monday.
Until next Monday. Let's be clear. Somebody said this in this administration, I can't remember who, I think it was Dr. Hampton. It's built so some people can get more money, which means some people will have less, right? And all of this is because there are some people among us in our country that care nothing about money, nothing about anything else but getting more money, more power. But if you know the God they worship, you know where to make them sacrifice. And you vote every day with your dollar. You don't have to wait. Yes, you're going to register now, but you can vote tomorrow with your dollar, this evening with your dollar. You vote every day with your dollar.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Congressman, as the Congressman begins to take us home, I see your message, Tamika, that you have here to give Dr. Mason this special gift. So as soon as the Congressman is done, I will do the special gift to Dr. Mason. Congressman, take us home.
Well, let me tell you, I know Dr. Mason, Dr. Hampton are young and youthful, but I don't think they were teenagers when they was listening to Michael Jackson. I think they may have gone a little bit beyond that period of time. But let me thank everybody again. I want to certainly thank Sonny Parker and Mickey Johnson and the professional athletes who live in our community and have been a part of helping us interact with young African American males, especially. And so Sonny and Mickey and all of that group, we want to thank you so much for the leadership roles that you continue to play. And I want to give a little shout out to Marsha Oliver, because Marshall, our mutual friend's granddaughter, stopped me at the service station the other day. I was getting some gasoline and she was getting gasoline. She looked over and she says, "Oh my God, Congressman Davis." I said, "Yeah." She said, "Do you remember me when you was at our prom?" my wife used to sponsor a lot of proms and that kind of stuff. But with this being the end of March Madness and the role that athletics play in our society and in our country, economically, the leadership, all of that is a big part of the American heritage and what America is. But we better watch out because they want to take Jackie Robinson's name off the list of outstanding soldiers. And as I mentioned, Tallahassee is the home of Florida State University, Florida A&M rather, and they got a big exhibit in the airport of African American scholars and all. And I was jokingly saying to somebody, so I guess we got to watch out because they may want to take those down and say they ought not be there. But in spite of all the things that are going on, I seriously do believe that they that wait on the Lord shall renew their strength, and they will mount up like the wings on an eagle. They can run and won't get tired. They will walk and not faint. So all we got to do is keep on running. And I guarantee you, we'll get to the finish line. So thank you all so much. It's been a wonderful evening. And until next week, I'll see you then. Thank you. Thank you all.
Outstanding. Well, Dr. Mason, this is for you. That's from Tamika. Good night, everybody.
All right. Right on. What a group.